Folks, thanks a lot for the 70,000 subscribers. You guys are awesome. But we're not stopping here. Let's push it, folks, to 100,000 subscribers. So give that support to the channel and subscribe, and hit that like button down below to reach our goal of 153 likes. And now let's go for it. In a world terrorized by the dreaded Kaiju, just like the entire national territory, the great city of Yokohama is protected by the Japan Self-Defense Force, and as soon as a fighter receives the order to proceed with their mission, a gigantic creature emerges from under the water to attack a bridge. The impact creates a wave that hits the sidewalk, and at the same instant, the Kaiju emergency alert sounds, so all citizens are evacuated to an underground shelter as the huge monster heads from Yadabashi to Yamashita. At this moment, it's reported to the activated units of the Defense Force that the estimated length of the Kaiju is 60 meters and its power level is 3.5. Intelligence warns that nothing has been identified on thermal sensors within a 3-mile radius, so the units are given permission to open fire on the target. Following the news reports, a group of friends assumes that the 3rd Division has been dispatched, since they are in Yokohama. From the combat helicopter, a unit jumps toward the cover of a building to reach a strategic position, while the Kaiju knocks down everything in its path. Infantry units are deployed to the front lines to engage the enemy up close and cause a distraction, and the huge monster struggles against opponents so small and agile. In no time, the strategic unit finds the perfect spot to fire an explosive projectile at the Kaiju's chest, causing its torso to explode, resulting in a gruesome rain of blood. After the Kaiju extraction machinery arrives, a man enjoys a delicious burger inspired by the scene of guts scattered across Yokohama. Although it seems like quite a mess, the man is a member of the cleaning crew responsible for these creatures, so there remains me another hefty dose of overtime pay. Meanwhile, the population applauds the talented members of the 3rd Division, who once again controlled the danger without suffering any casualties. Led by Captain Ashiro, the group has reached the status of Yokohama heroes and are recognized as the true guardians of the citizens against the Kaiju threat. In the midst of the parade after this victory, the humble janitor seems lost among the ecstatic crowd. After all, Kaka Hibino was gearing up for his own battle, one that begins outside the media spotlight and the cheers of the crowd. Serving Azumotech in addition to cleaning, his team is tasked with collecting a sample of the slain Kaiju, so Kaka requests a heat chainsaw to cut the fat stuck to the monster's jaw. Suddenly, one of the Kaiju's organs explodes, causing a workplace accident and inflicting a serious burn on a worker's leg. According to Kafka, whenever the 3rd Division springs into action, they leave behind this mess, making it difficult to distinguish which organs might be dangerous. However, that's not the only problem to be considered, considering that the cleaning crew has been ordered to finish the job by the end of the weekend, even though the 60-meter creature has left the sea dirty for miles around. As if that weren't enough, Kafka is assigned to clean the intestines due to a lack of a worker, and let's just say that's not the most pleasant part of the body to work on, if you consider what is produced in that region. According to legend at Azumotech, the worker sent to the intestines always goes for a long time without being able to eat, due to the nature of this inconvenient service. Arriving home, Kafka is exhausted after the heavy shift, and to make matters worse, he can still smell the animal's feces burning in his nostrils, so he blows his nose as if trying to force the stench out. Behind him, the TV highlights the heroic actions of the 3rd Division of the Defense Force and its young leader, Mina Ashiro, who not only attained the rank of captain at 27, but also has hundreds of slain Kaiju to her credit. Watching the report, Kaka remembers when he promised alongside Mina that they would exterminate the Kaiju together, but his smoker's lung is living proof that time has passed, along with his childish ambitions. Upon turning off the television and seeing his reflection on the screen, Kaka wonders how he ended up there, but just a brief thought about his current life situation makes the young man lose his calm. In the end, he content himself with performing an important service for society, which provided him with a decent roof over his head where he can live, because according to him, that's good enough. However, as he headed to work the next day, Kaka couldn't stop thinking about yesterday's report, and when he arrives at the service headquarters, he is introduced to a new Azumotech employee named Rino Ichikoma. The young man begins an internship today with the others, but according to Toku, he only thinks about joining the Defense Force as soon as he gets the chance. Toku tells the newcomer that Kafka also had this dream, but he's still the star cleaner of Yokohama to this day. Taking the teasing seriously, Ichikawa asks why Kafka gave up, and although this subject stirs great resentment in the man, he hides his frustration by answering that he did his best, but as you grow up, you understand that not every dream comes true. However, Ichikawa would rather die than accept the end of this dream, so giving up is not an option for him. With that said, he leaves to put on his work uniform, and Kafka hated having come across a young man who has the same ambition he had, but with a flame that has long since extinguished for him. During the shift, Mike's team is tasked with cleaning the bones, while Yoshimura's team must start partitioning the Kaiju's legs. When the rookie was sent to the intestines, Kaka thinks he got rid of another night with the smell of sewage, but his luck was still low at that point, so he's sent there for the second consecutive day. At break time, Ichikawa can't keep up the tough guy act after the ordeal of the intestines, and Kaka tries to laugh at the newbie's nausea, but he himself needs to be careful not to throw up. Since the boy couldn't eat, Kaka gives him a liquid multivitamin to tank the rest of the rough afternoon of work, as well as nasal plugs so he won't come home wanting to stick his nose in a bucket of disinfectant. However, since the veteran was hoarse because of the protection, Ichikawa didn't understand anything he said, so Kafka found himself obliged to teach the intern to protect himself through sheer ignorance. After the break, the two resumed their dreaded task of dealing with the Kaiju's intestines until sunset, when some colleagues bid farewell as they finished the day's work. Kafka at least rejoiced in having finished the foulest part of the Kaiju, and the newcomer Reno Ichikawa, seizing the brief moment of rest, took the opportunity to thank his colleague for helping him get through his first day at the company. Additionally, before leaving, the intern informed the veteran that the Defense Force had raised the age limit for enrollment to 32 years. Therefore, Ichikawa knows that he doesn't want to meddle in other people's lives, but he recalls the bitterness in Kaka's expression when he talked about giving up earlier. In light of this, the man comments that Ichikawa is cooler than he had imagined. But just as the young man was about to return to his cold and calculating demeanor, a kaiju emerges and attacks him. In a reflex, Kaka saves his companion from the monster's jaws, and in another attempt by the kaiju to attack, once again the young man is saved by his co-worker. Then Kaka tells Ichikawa to run and get help, but with the boy's reluctance to leave his friend, Kaka reminds him that the boy won't be able to join the defense force if he's buried 7 feet underground. With Ishikawa's departure, the remaining man lures the creature towards himself and runs as fast as he can until he finds a steep opening where the kaiju can't pass. Continuing to run down the corridor, Kaka crosses the gallery until he jumps out of the window on the other side. At that moment, memories of childhood with Mina emerge, where he tells his inconsolable friend that the kaiju destroyed the school where they studied in their home, so little Kafka regrets not having killed the Guruman. Mina criticizes her friend for only caring about this in these circumstances. After all, Miko, her tabby cat, died at the hands of that demon. Therefore, they both declare at the same time that they will join the defense force, and Kaka challenges Mina to see who will be the cooler officer first, so they can fight together against the kaiju threat. However, the man found himself alone facing this grotesque creature, and upon finding an iron bar on the ground, he tries to confront the kaiju and his frustration for not being in the defense force. But the enemy's strength and speed are overwhelming, so soon the human is thrown into the air, wondering once again how he ended up there. Mercilessly, the kaiju steps on him and prepares to make him his meal, unable to fight for his life anymore. However, Ichikawa delays the monster's dinner by hitting it with a traffic sign, while announcing that he has called for reinforcements. Even without being able to react, Kaka criticizes his companion's decision to return, but Ichikawa wouldn't see himself as a worthy member of the defense force if he simply left his comrade to die. Hearing that, Kaka remembers when he was eliminated in the test to join the anti-kaiju force, and now there he was, weakened to the point of leaving his partner fighting alone against a monster of this magnitude. Faced with reality, Kaka accepts that he is not capable of protecting his coworker, just as he didn't even save his friend's tabby cat. Still, there was someone capable of doing so, and through her white tiger and her rifle, Mina Ashiro adds another kaiju to her portfolio in a few seconds, before ordering some subordinates to start the rescue operation, while she personally checks for the presence of other Yoju in the area with her team. When hospitalized, Kaka reflects on how Mena took down that monster in a few seconds, so he's eating dust in the challenge they agreed upon. Tachikawa startles him by drawing his attention and remarks that he wouldn't be alive if it weren't for him. So Kaka is also a cool guy. As soon as he hears that word, the man is thrown back to when he bet with his friend about who would be the coolest officer first. Tachikawa says again that Kaka should try to join the defense force, and this time Kaka himself acknowledges that there's no point in pretending to himself that he's left that goal behind. He recognizes that giving up is part of life, but lying to oneself is the worst thing one could do. Therefore, he commits to giving himself another chance. However, a small winged kaiju that was lurking claims to have found its target, and then enters the man's mouth, causing a hideous reaction that affects his entire body. Ichikawa goes to see what's happening, and when he opens the curtain separating them, Kafka had assumed a diabolical form. Seeing himself in the window, the monster panics alongside his friend, while an old man passing through the corridor sees the scene and pulls out his cell phone to report the presence of another kaiju. Returning to a moment from Kaka's childhood, Mina showed her usual confidence by swearing to protect him when he was scared. At the same time, she teased the boy for being afraid of something, and he asked her not to tell anyone. Finally, she thanked Kaka because together they had no reason to be afraid. Many years later, the captain of the 3rd Division of the Defense Force alerted her subordinates that a kaiju had been spotted inside a hospital and must be defeated before it harmed anyone. Soon, the state units announced that a small kaiju had been seen in the vicinity, so all citizens should go to the nearest shelter or protect themselves at home. Meanwhile, the kaiju was freaking out in front of the old man in the hospital, so Ichikawa asked him to smile to break the ice. But it seemed that didn't work out very well because the old man fainted on the spot. As the kaiju put his hand on the wall to check on the old man, he ended up devastating the entire structure he touched. The other patients went to see what that noise was and realized the presence of the kaiju, and Ichikawa believed that the defense force must already be on its way, so Kaka ran to the window to escape, once again destroying everything he touched. Despite this, they had no choice, so they decided to jump anyway. In the meantime, the defense units were heading to the South Yokohama General Hospital, where the two protagonists were because they learned that the kaiju was heading to an evacuated area nearby. As the two ran for their lives, Ichikawa wondered how his friend had suddenly turned into a kaiju, so he asked Kafka if he was really Kafka, but the kaiju had assumed such a grotesque form that he didn't even know who he was anymore. At that moment, the monster's tongue ate a bird without Kafka's consent, so both he and Ichikawa noticed that things were getting ugly, not to mention extremely disgusting. Suddenly, Kafka returned to normal, much to everyone's relief, but he was desperate to relieve himself and was sure he would release everything at any moment. His friend asked him to hold it like a normal adult, but the kaiju was so pressed that he ended up releasing all his urine through his nipples as if he were a fountain of beautiful angels spitting water from his mouth. This destabilized the poor boy emotionally to the point where he thought no one would want to marry him, but the other boy reminded him that there were more serious things to think about at the moment. Shaken, Kaka asked if he could still join the defense force, and Ichikawa shook his head no 7 times in 3 seconds because it was easier to kill Kaka outright than to let him set foot in any base of that army. Faced with this, Kaka deeply lamented what was happening to his body just when he had promised to meet Mino in the defense force after so many years of frustration and passivity. Concerned about the imminent arrival of the state agents, Ichikawa wanted them to jump into a prohibited area to throw the agents off, but Kaka noticed the strange presence of some being coming from underground. At the same moment, Mina sent one of the cars to proceed with the standard plan, while her car went to investigate the new kaiju that had just been detected. Kaka believed it was the same type of kaiju that attacked the Tulin last time, and Ichikawa presumed that now they would have a better chance of hiding with the presence of this other monster because the defense force would have to divide its attention. Therefore, he followed the course through the forbidden area, something Kaka also did right behind him. The emergence of the other kaiju caused devastation that trapped a mother under the rubble in her own home, while her daughter cried desperately at the scene. The mother asked her daughter to run away, but the girl tried to save the woman in any way she could, even though she had no chance. Suddenly, the monster appeared and destroyed the entire structure of the house around them, leaving the child vulnerable while her mother cried because she couldn't even protect her daughter. The kaiju opened its mouth toward the little girl and was about to swallow her when another kaiju appeared to prevent that from happening, throwing the punch that sent the creature hundreds of miles away. After that, not even Kaka himself believed in all the strength he had, and then he tried to see how the child was doing, forgetting that he now looked like the devil with LED lights. Faced with the little girl's terror, he had the brilliant idea to try to smile again, causing the poor girl to panic. Soon after, Ichikawa arrived and managed to put the house in order, so Kaka lifted the rubble and the boy analyzed that the mother was only unconscious and would be fine, reassuring the child. At that moment, the enemy kaiju returned to the same spot to take revenge on the one who had hit him earlier, so Kaka told his friend to take the two away to deal with the adversary monster alone. Then he tried to repeat the same punch he had given earlier, but now that he was more aware of his strength, this time he put so much power into it that the adversary kaiju was thrown into the air and completely exploded, causing a rain of blood. As the blood fell to the ground, Ichikawa made it clear to his friend that he should never point that fist at any human. After that, Kaka asked his friend to take the mother to the hospital, but once again he scared the girl with his appearance. With that, he changed his approach and approached slowly to say that the defense force must be on its way, so she shouldn't worry because he was about to disappear. However, as Kaka was leaving, the girl thanked him for the help, and that child's voice reminded Kafka of Mino's voice, when the two promised to stay together so they wouldn't be afraid, and the way they always stood by each other. Suddenly, Kafka had a vision of himself and Mino fighting alongside the forces of evil in the defense force uniform. Then, while Ichikawa reminded him that they needed to leave, Kafka regained his human form from head to neck, promising that he wouldn't give up, but he would stay by Mina's side no matter what. With the arrival of the 3rd Division to the scene, the captain looks around at the wreckage and wonders what the heck happened there. Soon, she approaches the surviving child to inquire about the kaiju she saw. The girl cries as she remembers the creature's disgusting mouth almost swallowing her, but Mino reassures the girl by promising to exterminate all those monsters. This cheers up the little girl, but soon she asks the captain not to hurt the kind kaiju that saved her mother, leaving the officer puzzled. Hours after the incident, the sketch of Kaiju number 8 adorned the local news, while the monster sweeper cleanup crew debated whether the monster was still alive or not. Ichikawa arrives at this moment, and his demeanor is cold in the face of the magnitude that all of this is taking, especially because Kafka was the first kaiju in history to escape the defense force, and this could cause a general panic in Yokohama. The cleaning manager hands Ichikawa a package that arrived for him and Kafka, and all the coworkers remember that it's time for the defense force exams, and every year they needed to cheer Kafka up after he failed. To Ichikawa's delight, he passed the test, and he decides to personally deliver Kafka's result to him, but not before taking a look at the paper and continuing the run with a smile on his face. Inside the cleaning headquarters, friends remember that this is the last year Kafka can enter the force, and they would love for that to happen. So Ichikawa approaches his companion and informs him that he passed the first phase of the tests, but since he was simply having lunch in his kaiju form, the guy kicks him to remind him that being careless with that demon face in the street will make him die quickly. Kafka rubs his face to correct the mistake, but leaves behind his monster dentition. Ichikawa warns that the kaiju's ugly mug is plastered on every news program in the country, and that caution is paramount. Speaking of which, Ichikawa recalls that they had ended up returning to the hospital to convince everyone that they had fled when the kaiju appeared to try to clear their names. Then Ichikawa finally hands Kafka the result, but he doesn't seem so happy. In fact, Kafka is always eliminated in the second phase, so it's not time to celebrate. Ichikawa questions how his friend will take the test with this new body, but the kaiju promises not to let anyone discover his identity. The human remembers that the first phase is just a written test, but the second has officials scattered everywhere. But still, Kafka is sure that he will participate. After all, he has dedicated much of his life to it, and this year is his last chance. That said, Ichikawa comments that at some point they will be rivals in the test until Kafka blows the lid off his bottle trying to open it, making the young human change his mind about the kaiju being able to take the test, but the kaiju promises firmly that nothing will go wrong, and that he will hold his own at the time. Anyway, Ichikawa leaves annoyed, while Kafka tries to assimilate everything that has been happening and soon returns to human form to get back into the game with his disguise. 10 days later, Tokyo Building hosts the second phase of the Defense Force exam. As soon as he arrives, Ichikawa is impressed to see Tachikawa Base in person, because he has even visited Kumagawa Base once, but this one is much bigger. Kafka explains that they share this area with a Defense Force garrison, and when something happens, both bases work together to send officers to the west side of Tokyo. As the candidates arrive, Kafka feels intimidated by seeing younger and apparently better prepared competitors than him, but he tries to contain his nervousness. Suddenly, a girl approaches Kafka calling him an old man, and the 32-year-old man himself takes a few seconds to understand that he was the one being called, and when he understood, he makes a point of warning that he's not old yet, even though the girl insists on the nickname. In reality, she just wanted Kafka to move his old Ken out of the way because she can't park. The man argues angrily that there are plenty of empty spaces, but the girl insists on parking in space 55 because her lucky number for today is 5. Since Kafka doesn't have much patience for this twisted lucky number talk, the girl decides to clear the space with her own hands, so she activates her uniform with some mysterious mechanism and gains superhuman strength to lift the car with just her right hand. Faced with the horror of the two men beside her, the girl simply tosses the monster sweeper van into space 53 as if it were garbage, leaving Kafka crazy for it being the company's car. Ichikawa asks the girl who she is, and she replies that she is candidate number 2016, Kekoru Shinomiya, and her hobby is exterminating cages. Ichikawa recognizes the surname Shinomiya immediately, while the girl approaches who she calls the old man and warns him that he smells like a kaiju. Hey folks, we're kicking off the new anime season, and if you enjoyed this anime and want to see more of it, go ahead and hit that like button down below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We need your support to reach our goal of 70,000 subscribers. Every subscription counts and helps us grow our community. Catch you next time.